So after the Eagles beat the Packers, it was announced that their linebacker Dean will miss the rest of the playoffs. A pretty big blow for that Eagles defense. He was definitely a big critical part of what makes that defense so good. But we'll see who steps up, and there's really no excuses, especially if you look at how many injuries the Lions have just defensively. So no excuses going forward, but still, regardless, a really, really big loss for that Eagles defense. Now, as far as for the game a day ago, I don't know how any of you feel about Jalen Hurts, but I think I've seen enough from him. I think that contract was definitely an overreach, and good for him, good for his agent and his family and everyone that knows Jalen Hurts, but I don't think he deserves that contract that he currently has with the Eagles. The fact that they kept running the ball with Barkley, I get it, he was rusty. I get it, they didn't trust him. And I understand that, there was a lot of pressure on the Eagles and especially Sirianni a day ago, but like, come on, bro. Like, call a better game. But the fact that they don't call a better game, it's just like it shows the lack of trust they have in him. And even when he is throwing it, he's not super efficient. He only had 100 yards a day ago. And when they beat the Niners as well in the NFC Championship 2 years ago, he only threw 100 yards. I just feel like every time this guy has a playoff game, he only throws for 100 yards. I know the Super Bowl was a bit different, but still, man, yesterday's game was kind of confusing for me. Just the pace the Eagles were playing at, and just like how they didn't really run away with the game until the very end. Honestly, the Eagles should have been up by like 17 or 24 by halftime. The fact that they kept the Packers around a completely depleted Packers offense. I think if you're a Philly fan, you definitely got to be a bit worried about the next round and going forward. We'll see if the play calling and Jalen Hurts improve a week from now. It's possible, another home game, but that's not a Super Bowl contending team. Like, come on, man. I know Barkley is elite and he's special and he's, you know, one of the MVPs of the league, but still, man, you can't win a Super Bowl with that sort of play calling and that sort of quarterback play. Let me know if you agree with me. Do you think I'm being too harsh or not? I'm curious. For Jalen Hurts' career moving forward, I would be really curious to see how he would do with a pure offensive minded head coach. And I know Sirianni does have that background, but I don't think he's the best head coach. Like, I'd be really curious to see if Shane Steichen was back on the Eagles as the head coach and he had Jalen Hurts, or if someone like Ben Johnson had Jalen Hurts. I'd be curious to see if his play improved at all. I'd be curious to see if he was more efficient as a passer and whatnot, but I don't know, man. I've seen enough personally of who he is, what he is. He's definitely a starting quarterback in the NFL for sure, and he is polarizing, absolutely. And of course, he is the king of the tush push, so there's that too. But yeah, man, we'll see what happens. As far as for the Philadelphia Eagles, they will either be playing the Minnesota Vikings or the LA Rams. I don't know, man. If I was an Eagles fan, I would be rooting for the Vikings. I just don't see Sam Darnold coming into Philly and putting on a show. I just don't see it. Who knows? Maybe he could tear it up tonight in his first ever playoff game. But that Sunday night football game against the Lions really left a bad taste in my mouth. Did not have a good performance, even though it was a very winnable game. And that was probably the biggest game of his career up to this point. Obviously, tonight in Arizona against the Rams, his first ever playoff game, will be his biggest game as the QB1 for a team. But I really just can't imagine Sam Darnold coming into Philly against that pretty good Eagles defense and just putting on a show. Again, I could be completely wrong. They definitely have the weapons to do that. TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones, Jefferson, Addison, of course, we all know them, but I really feel like this Eagles defense is pretty special. Now, for the Rams, I just trust Matt Stafford to potentially come into Philly and get a dub. He's a Super Bowl champion. Not a lot of playoff experience, but he has more playoff experience than Sam Darnold. And, you know, Sean McVay, I trust him more than Kevin O'Connell right now. I know Kevin O'Connell is a great, amazing coach, but Sean McVay, a Super Bowl champion, has been very, very consistent throughout his career. And I just feel like he would call a better game and have a better game plan going into Philly than Kevin O'Connell, mainly due to the experience thing and due to his overall resume as well. So you let me know, if you're an Eagles fan, would you rather have the Rams come or the Vikings? Curious to hear. And you guys, let me know if you enjoyed a wild card weekend up to this point. I am recording this Monday morning, so there's one more game left. I hope it's good. But to be honest, I was really hyped for this wild card weekend, like I'm sure all of you were as well. It's the playoffs. Definitely should be an exciting time. But most of the games were pretty boring and just not very entertaining to watch. I did enjoy the Chargers and Houston game, just the overall chaos of that game. The Ravens and the Steelers game, it was fine, but, you know, could have been better, wasn't really all that competitive. Had its moments, I suppose, but as an overall start to finish game, not the best. Bills Broncos was honestly a tough watch. Sean Payton, definitely some questionable play calling in that game, and the Broncos defense just could not stop the run. Just a really boring game to watch, to be honest. And the Eagles-Packers game wasn't pretty either. Pretty sloppy. But thankfully, the Sunday Night Football game, Jaden again to the rescue all season long. Put on a great show against Baker Mayfield. But you let me know if you agree with me. Do you think it's been a pretty disappointing wildcard weekend or not? And what was your favorite game up to this point? And do you think tonight's game will be entertaining? I think it will be. I think it will be. Just two good offenses and in a unique situation in Arizona. I feel like some weird stuff will happen. I feel like the game will open up, and I feel like it could get wacky and entertaining. So let me know what you think about Dean, the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, everything else in between. Do you think this team could make it to the Super Bowl? Let me know in the comments below. If you made this far, please subscribe and like the vid. That's all I got for right now. Peace.
The defense will take the penalty. First down at the 15. Trying to plow ahead. And it's Paul Posluszny who makes the hit.
Always good to have these types of runs. Yeah, it's not a first down, but it sends a message. It shows everybody that you can run it when you want to, and also it opens up so many other things for your offense.
Amaro with the reception. Amaro's met after a gain of 8. That's his third catch of the day.
When you run that drag route across the field, it is not as easy as it looks. You're running fast. You have to catch the football right in stride, and you cannot see what's in front of you.
First down and 10. Bilal Powell makes the catch. And that gains a few.
Well, the only thing I can say about that play, it was better than an incompletion. The quarterback gets the completion, and they pick up a yard or two.
The Jets have it at the 34. Pass ball's incomplete. Eric Decker, the intended target. Both secondaries have really stepped up today, Phil.
Yeah, they have. It's so hard to be a defensive back in the NFL to cover some of the fastest runners in the world to do that. And also we know they can't touch them either, so they're having an outstanding day.
The Jets have it at the 34. He's into the open. Now they take the football onto the opponent's side of the field. Setting up now at the 44-yard line. 1st and 10. And Ivory's going to take the handoff now. One team's running the football, the other is passing, but both are working with their game plans.
Yeah, they both are working. As you look down there on the field, one set of running backs are really happy. On the other side, the wide receiver group, they're really happy. So as long as you get it done, that's all that matters.
The Jets have it at the 39. Out of the pocket. He's got a wide open alley.